Hello, I'm Hannah, and this is Hannah's Books. Well, last week we had a couple of pretty frigid days along the east coast of the U.S. Although D.C. stayed much warmer than areas to the north of us, we were still quite cold. Temperatures are already back close to their new normal, with highs in the 50s Fahrenheit. But I was so excited about the little burst of actual winter weather that I checked out a handful of books about animals in the winter, especially animals in snow, and I want to share them with you today. Some are about real animals, and a couple about fictional ones. One is a book for adults, but most are picture books. First, the adult book. I picked up a copy of Bernd and Heinrich's book, The Winter World, The Ingenuity of Animal Survival. Heinrich is a naturalist, a biologist, and also a literary craftsman. This book tries to tease out evolutionary innovations that allowed animals from flying squirrels to black bears and from frozen insects to torpid turtles to survive through the winter. He's especially interested in what he sees in his own local woods in Vermont and Maine. Winter, of course, changes what Heinrich calls the most elemental component of life, water. And creatures have to change their physiology or their behavior to adjust to that transformation. Some animals have developed their own antifreeze, more or less. Others have to move constantly in order to keep their body temperatures high enough. But even when they have ways to avoid freezing to death, they have to either find food in a time of scarcity or have stored it back in a time of plenty. The book is serious nonfiction, but it's also gentle and lovely. The dust jacket even says that Winter World, quote, awakens the wonders and mysteries by which nature sustains herself through winter's harsh, cruel exigencies. But let's go on to a few nonfiction-ish books for young people. The first one I want to mention is Over and Under the Snow by Kate Messner, with art by Christopher Silas Neal. Although it's quite simple in many ways, it focuses on both a personal story about a young girl and her father who are cross-country skiing through a forest, and on the basic science of how forest-dwelling animals spend their winters. Over the woods I glide, into woods frosted fresh and white, it begins. Over the snow, a flash of fur, a red squirrel disappears down a crack. Where did he go? Under the snow, Dad says. Under the snow is a whole secret kingdom where the smallest forest animals stay safe and warm. You're skiing over them now. The narrative then shows some of that secret kingdom, from mice who dodge columns of ice under the snow, fat bullfrogs who snooze, dreaming of sun-warmed days, the author writes, from chipmunks that have bedroom, kitchen, hallway, a full house under the child's feet, to a snoring black bear, still full of October blueberries and trout, to a drowsy queen bumblebee, who will rule a new colony when the temperature begins to warm up again in the spring. At the end of the sweet text, there's an author's note saying there really is a secret kingdom under the snow, which scientists call the subnivean zone, a network of open spaces and tunnels between the snowpack and the ground. Messner, the author, gives a brief but relatively serious discussion intended for young people, as well as a more significant discussion of the winter lives of the various animals who appear in the narrative. Really a lovely book. Somewhat similar is Winter Lullaby by Dianne White, illustrated by Ramona Kolitsky, although it has less discussion of the science. Instead, we get a gentle story of the days right before the winter arrives. Mama Bear and Small Bear are about to tuck into their den for a long sleep. Small Bear wants to stay up, having adventures with Hare and Skunk and Chipmunk as they romp through the leaves and gather nuts. But Mama Bear assures her Small Bear that the other animals are getting ready to, quote, slumber safe and sound. Hare will weather winter's storm in empty log or hollowed form. Badger will settle soon, not yet, tucked inside her chambered set. She then promises her babe that come spring, the ice will melt and they will awake, and they will splash together in the lake. But first, they'll nestle into a deep sleep. Both of these picture books seem like lovely things to read to children as they're heading off to sleep. A good night's sleep, of course, with promises of adventures when we wake, is what these stories of hibernation tap into. I want to mention a couple of other books which are a bit more fictional. One is Jan Bratt's classic book, The Hat. When the young human child Lisa pulls out her winter clothes and hangs them on a line outside to air them out before the cold season starts, one of her knitted socks blows off the line. The hedgehog, Hedgie, finds it and starts to explore it. His prickles catch on the wool and he can't get it off his head. Although he tells the other animals that he has decided to keep warm by using this stylish hat, they all laugh at him. Finally, the little girl finds him and gently helps him remove her sock from his head. But when she returns to the clothesline, all of the other animals who had laughed at Hedgie have gone and taken the other woolens for themselves. If you love this book, you might want to check out Bratt's other related winter books, including The Mitten and The Snowy Nap. I really love her artwork. Sort of similar is a book I didn't check out of the library because I knew we had it in the house. Unfortunately, when my son was straightening up and packing away his childhood books, I think it got packed somewhere fairly inaccessible. The book is The Tomten and the Fox by Astrid Lindgren, author of the Pippi Longstocking books. This book is the sequel to The Tomten, which is also quite sweet, but I really loved this one. One winter night, a hungry fox is wandering around the farmyard looking for something to eat. Someone to eat, that is. The Tomten, sort of a mythical guard elf, is sympathetic to his hunger, but he also wants to protect the farm animals. He gently redirects the fox away from the henhouse, and instead he gives him a different treat, a bowl of porridge. I don't know if foxes like porridge, but I love the fact that Lindgren doesn't turn the fox into a Disney-style villain here, even though his hunger does in fact threaten the farm animals. It's a story about generosity and compassion. Okay, the last book I want to mention is another science-oriented and history-oriented book about snow, but not in this case about animals, or at least not about non-human animals. And that's Snowflake Bentley by Jacqueline Briggs Martin and illustrated by Mary Azarian. From the time he was a little boy, Wilson Bentley was fascinated by the patterns he saw in snowflakes. When his mother gave him an old microscope, he used it to look at flowers, raindrops, and blades of grass. Best of all, he used it to look at snow. While other children built forts and pelted snowballs at roosting crows, Willie was catching single snowflakes. Day after stormy day, he studied the ice crystals. From his boyhood on, he studied all forms of moisture. He kept a record of the weather and did many experiments with raindrops. Bentley was determined that one day he'd figure out how to capture them on film so he could save them and help other people see their intricate designs and understand the mathematics of the natural world. And eventually he did, using a camera with its own microscope. After he acquired the camera, he experimented with photographic techniques to improve the quality of the images, and his photography helped him understand more about how snowflakes form and how and why they all differ from each other. He shared the photographs with friends and family, and eventually his pictures were used in universities too, and he published articles and eventually a book. This book's illustrations are wonderful woodcuts and really work perfectly with the historical setting of the book. Well, I really enjoyed poking through these wintry books as I drank a cup of hot chocolate. If your area is getting cold weather, I hope you can keep warm. Thanks for joining me today. See you soon here on Hannah's Books.